What up, my fellow Knicks fans? This is your guy Marcellus Ease, and don't panic quite yet. Now in this segment, we're going to dive deep into the offensive shootout between Jalen Brunson and Jayson Tatum and how the mid-range game played a part in this duel. We'll also hear from Hall of Famers, touch base on some of the nuances and some of the narratives surrounding the mid-range game. As really in this matchup, it opened things up for this Knicks offense completely, as this was probably the Knicks' best offensive outing within the whole playoffs. But as we continue to look at the concepts that are playing out in this series, we're also going to dive into the injury of Jayson Tatum and what it means for the Eastern Conference landscape going forward. I tell you what, the NBA nowadays, it's a very thin line between having a dynasty and starting over. But hey, I'm not going to say no more. Let's just get to it.
I use great moments to pull greatness out of great men. I did not send David to slay Goliath. I sent Goliath to prove to David that what resides in him is a giant. And I want those young Davids to know this giant that sits before you today, he is not for your destruction, it is for your construction. You will show the world that you will slay this giant. So you play together, one man with another. You play connected, each man for the other, and you slay this giant.
I'll go right.
Now to start this off, we're going to get in between the lines of what went down with Jalen Brunson and Jayson Tatum's duel, as they both went all out with the scoring. But when you really dive deep, out of Jayson Tatum's 28 shots, he had 16 three-point attempts. And for Brunson, out of his 25 shots, he only had 8 three-point attempts. And by the time the game was coming down the stretch, Tatum only had a few more points than Brunson did. But again, when you dive deeper into their shot charts and you just see Brunson getting more into his spots from in and around the paint, it begins to tell more of a story of what's going on in this series, because with him just getting more into his bag from the mid-range, it's allowing the Knicks more of a chance to draw fouls and also get offensive boards, as Karl Anthony Towns has had the more favorable matchup in the paint. And we got to add more into the fact that the Celtics in this series, their bigs have been one of their weaker points. Al Horford has looked his age, and Kristaps Porzingis, even though he's almost in his early 30s, he's looking like a player that's almost in his late 30s, the way his body's been holding up and the way he's reacting to the physicality. And with the Celtics bigs not really being as much of a factor, it's taken away from their versatility. But again, before we take a look at the film, I want to get more into the nuances of the mid-range game in today's NBA. And there's no better way than to hear from two Hall of Famers, Steve Nash and LeBron James, touch base on today's mid-range game. And a lot of the concepts that they touched on has been playing out in this very series. And I'm also going to add on to this. They spoke on a lot of the narratives surrounding the mid-range game, from analytics to exactly who is the mid-range a bad shot for. This was a very interesting segment. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
The conversation largely talks about, for the average fan, we don't shoot mid-range shots anymore. We've taken them out. That's not true.
It's not true.
Role players don't shoot mid-range shots anymore. The role player in our league nowadays has to be able to guard multiple positions, has to be able to make threes.
Yep.
And it's a bonus and growing if they can attack a closeout and start the blender. So that is what's happened here. I'm going to make the argument now, and I want us to talk about this at length, that the mid-range shot has never been more important for your creator, because teams are obviously going to try to take away the rim and the threes. Okay? Teams know the number one value is a layup, number two is a free throw, number three, really, probably offensive rebound and threes. All right,
Ask yourself this question: who's winning all three of those battles right now? With the layups, the free throws, and the offensive rebounds. You see, once again, with the Celtics bigs not necessarily being up to par, especially with the physicality down low. Josh Hart, OG, Mikal, a lot of guys are getting offensive boards, especially when the defense collapses on Brunson when he's in his zone, when he's in the paint.
Offensive rebounds because you got a chance at a layup, you got a chance at an and one, you got a chance at free throws, or
you got the chance of
defense is closing in, right? Threes. So for anyone who thinks there's too many threes, that's never going away. And it's not because we don't take mid-ranges anymore. Like, think about it. Luka, Giannis, who's picked up his mid-range game. Jokic, elite from the mid-range. You know, KD, Luka, whoever these guys are, top players. You know, what they are not doing is stopping driving the ball to the basket. So Shea still an elite, maybe the leader in drives, right? Same when push comes to shove, Luka, Jokic, trying to get to the rim.
Correct.
So it's not, I'm going to settle for mid-range shots. These are elite players taking the ball to the basket, taking threes, but the defense also is going to say, we can't let him get in there. What do you do now? So that's where these mid-range shots are never more valuable from your creators.
No, for sure. And the one thing about the creators, we're going to hit all three levels. And in order to be able to hit all three levels, it gives your teammates even more opportunities to do what they are out there to do. You know, by either extending the defense to the three-point. Okay, we're not gonna. You're shooting 10 or 12 threes a game. Well, now we're going to extend our defense. We're not going to allow you to shoot the threes, but we're also going to protect the rim. But the creators in our game have always worked on mid-ranges, either if it's mid-range pull-ups, mid-range floaters, you know, turning drives into back downs, you know, to be in the mid-range. Like, you know, for me,
even mid-range post-ups.
Even mid-range post-ups. You know, you're getting a lot of guys in, you know, your former teammate Dirk mastered the nail ISO, you know, and at the time and when Dirk was in his prime and doing his thing, it was, I can get all the way to the rim. I can back you down from here, or I can face you up and shoot no dribbles, use all my footwork, use all my pivots, and I'm gonna keep the defense so at bay and off balance.
Now, here's a strike two for the Celtics, opposed to their bigs not really performing well. You gotta ask yourself this, in the mid-range right now, especially under pressure in crunch time, who's performing better, Brunson or Tatum? See, that's really been the uncomfortable question for the Boston Celtics to answer. Their superstar down the stretch has really not been up to par versus Brunson. And also, he's not even that great really throughout this whole series of just taking on Mitchell Robinson as well as Karl Anthony Towns one-on-one off the dribble and getting to the cup. It has not quite been as comfortable for him and as well as Jaylen Brown.
That is always going to work to the benefit of our team. And that's what it is. I think, you know, like you said, the common fan will say there's no mid-range in the NBA anymore. It's just fast breaks, layups, threes, and free throws. But it's absolutely not true.
It's not true, and I think like it's just important. And maybe this is something that a lot of people are like, that's obvious. But I think a lot of fans, you know, it swings one way, no more mid-range shots. Like, where would the Knicks be without Jalen Brunson in the mid-range? You know, where would like Oklahoma City be? Like, that's the solve. That's the solve for people taking away the rim, taking away the threes. You know, I think there's some numbers on Shea where he's elite in pick and roll. The number drops precipitously when they double him. So, but think about this. They're playing 4-on-3 now. They have a great team, right? They have a great team. They have guys that can put the ball on the floor, pass, shoot, make plays. You know, maybe this is largely when Jalen Williams is off the floor, but when he gets doubled, they go from to 1 point per possession from like elite, right, or below 1 point per possession. So it shows like that should lead to threes and layups when you're playing 4-on-3.
Yeah, for sure.
So his ability to exploit that space in the middle and still be elite is based on the fact that he is a 3-level scorer, like you said, and that without that, they're not efficient.
They're not the number one team in the West.
And you could say that about a lot of the top players in our league without them, because teams are going to take away the rim, they're going to take away the perimeter, the threes.
Especially in the postseason when things become even more dialed in and strategic about the game plan. And you have, you know, throughout the course of the regular season, if you're playing against a certain team, you have a shoot around maybe, and then you have a pregame 20-minute conversation to prepare for a team. Maybe. You know, in the postseason, you have days and days and days to be able to prepare and also be able to still prepare throughout the series, you know, to be able to lock in on personnel, lock in on keys, lock in on what we want to try to make you do. So if you have these 3-level guys that can keep the defense, no matter what you try to implement, you take away the 3. I get to the mid-range, you take it to the mid-range, I can get to the hole. You try to press up too much, now I can draw fouls. I can get the team into the bonus. And the mid-ranges, I think, is very, very key to the success of great teams.
For sure. A lot of players get their rhythm in the mid-range. You can't, and like I've talked to some coaches in the league who, you know, have been in the league for, you know, 20, 30, 40 years. And they always say, you always want to find a way to get your best players shots. And a lot of times that's just spacing. Get them go one-on-one, get to their spot. But how can you say, I want to get them a shot, I want to get them a bucket, and then say, oh, but by the way,
you can't take that one.
Don't do these ones.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do these ones. Like,
yeah.
You know, like, could you imagine, like, I mean, when I coached, like, I would have loved KD to take 8, 10, 12 threes a game. And he's capable, just rising up over people. But he gets so much rhythm and confidence from the mid-range, and he's such an assassin in there. Like, it's a big change that you're probably not always going to net out on the positive, right?
And it's an interesting thing with the Celtics because it seems like Tatum gets his rhythm when he starts knocking down 3-point shots. It's like the polar opposite for the Celtics, what Steve Nash just described. And again, in this series, it's been very unusual that the Celtics have had a superstar that at times it really gets uncomfortable for him under pressurized situations to even beat the Knicks centers off the dribble and score from the mid-range. It's just been a really odd thing.
You can say that about a lot of guys in our league, the top players, that they know hard dribble, feet set, up in the air. When you get that one to go, every other shot
their rhythm.
Is there, right?
It's their rhythm. It's their rhythm. You can't take away the guys' rhythm because the numbers speak for the masses.
Right.
It just can't happen. You know, it just can't happen. And to go back to the first point, the first question as far as the defense, like, you have to be able to live with something.
Yes.
You know, but definitely it takes
discipline.
It takes a lot of discipline. Like when you go into a game and say, okay, we want to give up contested twos. Like, if we give up contested twos and they make contested twos, then you tip your hat to them, and you know. But it's just certain guys that are literally assassins at contested twos. Shea being one of them, DeMar DeRozan being one of them, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. These guys are.
Those are layups.
They'd much rather you contest than not contest.
Right.
And at times, it's looking like we're going to have to add Brunson into that list. I mean, after this postseason, that is really going to be a topic of discussion because the way he's scoring in the paint, I mean, it's been like that since last postseason. He's looking like Ewing down there. Just how often he's getting points in that section. But at the end of the day, again, with Tatum, because most of his shots come from long range, as you guys could see the shot chart from Game 4, he's more prone to shooting slumps, which we've seen him have last year in the finals in Games 1 and 2, also throughout the summer in the Olympics, and even at times during this regular season.
Literally their rhythm.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a challenge for you know, a player when you're guarding these guys and you say, shit, I just made him take a contested two. And he keeps making it.
Yep.
And you have to realize, you're like, I'm not making him take contested twos.
Yeah, right.
This is what he wants to do.
Right.
And you just gotta hope he misses. And you hope that you hope that it wears. You hope that it wears over time, you know, to where, you know, fourth quarter come around, maybe because you've been doing things offensively, maybe putting them in actions, you know, maybe, you know, being a little physical with him up and down the court, and you hope that towards the fourth quarter, maybe that contested two that was going through the first 3 quarters maybe becomes a little short. So it's definitely a mind fuck for you, you know, as a defender.
And then also, at the end of games, you know, the analytics, you know, in many scenarios becomes less important.
Yeah.
Points are points. points are points at the end of the games, right? Like we're talking 2, 3, 4 minutes left. You don't have the opportunity to always pick and choose your shot profile.
No, you do not.
Right? Especially when the responsibility is on your shoulders to carry this team home. If you're finding space in the mid-range, which obviously teams are going to try to run you off the line. Teams are going to try to pack the paint at the rim. They're also going to try to spray out be on a string if you fire it out. So sometimes you have, as the lead guy, you have to have the confidence to stop, pull up, make those shots because a bucket is a bucket when you get down the stretch. So
absolutely.
It's a very nuanced conversation.
It is.
It's a nuanced conversation. One of the other things I was thinking, and I think you're like, some ways, you can play many different ways. But the one outlier here, and I think you're like, at times your profile when you want it to be can mirror it a little bit, is James Harden. So when he was at his best, like it was rim, free throws, grip of free throws, fooling everyone. You know, unbelievable downhill ability with size, athleticism, his crossover, playing on the perimeter, the step back threes, and then the floater. Which, you know, like is debatable. Like some of those are probably mid-range shots, but he was so good at the floater too that he didn't take really, you know, those. Right. Like I can't think of many more. You know, at times Steph can be a little bit like that, although he'll never devoid. You know, he's just so good from three and running off, and then defense makes a mistake or overplays him. He's getting to the paint. You know, you can do that when you want to, but you also obviously love the mid-post or elbows, wherever you needed to play against a certain team in different eras even.
Yeah.
But it is fascinating to think like what it says to me is how hard it is to stick to that shot profile.
Yeah.
Like it's almost impossible.
It is.
Like James is like the one kind of outlier that lived off that. And no offense, because he's still great, but as he's not quite as explosive anymore, he's taking more middies.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what does this all say to us about mid-range shot, right? Right?
Yeah.
How hard it was for him then, and what an outlier he was, shot profile-wise and efficiency, to now, when he's not quite the same athlete, still to, you know, an all-star caliber player,
right?
But he's taking more middies, right? It shows, like, one, it's almost impossible to have that profile, too. And then, when you got to get your team a bucket, you can't just say, I'm not shooting these. So it goes back to, like, the creator has to have the freedom to make and take those, or I don't think you can win.
Well, I mean, you just said it. I mean, you can't have the name of the creator if you're not gonna let me create.
Right.
And that is, you can't give me a blank canvas, but then tell me you can't paint over in that corner there.
Right.
Like I can't be a full artist then. How can I fully reach my potential as a full artist if you're gonna lower me on how much I can use the canvas to paint?
And at times, the Celtics do put themselves in a position where they can't fully use the whole canvas. You see, their strategy of just shooting a bunch of threes never factored in KP, Al Horford, Jrue Holiday, all being cold from three mostly throughout this series. Meanwhile, the Knicks, on the other hand, Jalen Brunson being able to get to the mid-range, even if he misses, it still allows for guys like Josh Hart to get an offensive board than to kick out to an open shooter. See, there's multiple ways the Knicks can score. At times, we're seeing the Celtics, if the three-point shots are not falling, especially with their leader, Jayson Tatum, really getting his rhythm from three-point range, there's really no plan B. And the best example of this is Mikal Bridges, the way he's impacted this series with his scoring that's really come in spurts. Whether it be second chance points, offensive rebounds, or just getting easier looks from defenses collapsing on Jalen Brunson in the paint. This has played out in games 2, 4, and in the previous series, game 6 in the closeout game, with Mikal Bridges being cold from the field and quickly impacting the game with fourth quarter scoring not necessarily coming from jump shots. A lot of layups, a lot of offensive boards, and a lot of quick, easy buckets coming from the attention of Karl Anthony Towns in the paint and also Jalen Brunson. You see, with Brunson being able to get to his spots all series long, he compromises the Celtics bigs on possessions like this with the offensive rebounding. You got Josh Hart, you got OG crashing, you got Towns. He's originally on a mismatch with them sticking Tatum or Jrue Holiday on him all series long. It's giving them a lot of issues on these rebounds because this defense already has to collapse on Brunson. Now, when we look at the playmaking that comes from the Celtics, on the other hand, a lot of their playmaking happens from outside of the arc. When they get in here, the passing has been minimum. It's been like that throughout the season. And that's why at times this team looks very one-dimensional, very similar to the James Harden Rockets, where it's just layup and threes. But in this particular game, most of Jayson Tatum's assists came in the same exact fashion. The only difference was the shot attempts. All 3-pointers for 3 out of his 4 assists. Brunson, on the other hand, getting to the paint, getting to his spots. If guys are not hot from the field, they're going to get some quick, easy layups with all the attention that he draws. And they're going to get opportunities to get offensive rebounds from Mitchell Robinson, Josh Hart. And also, this helps out Mikal Bridges. When his shot is not falling, he gets easy floaters, easy layups in around the hoop. So the Knicks right away, it's very noticeable. They can hit you a number of ways. And this is something that was hurting the Celtics when open shots from Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis wasn't falling quite as much, and plan B really looked like slim pickings. And Tatum has plenty of options to go to. For example, getting to the free throw line. Brunson once again outbeats him on that. 9 free throws to 3 in this game. It's kind of surprising because Tatum, he put on a lot of muscle. I'm surprised he doesn't put that into good use. But right here, once again, going one-on-one with Mikal Bridges. The 1v1 situations in this whole series has always been 50-50 as he loses the ball. When you look at Brunson, on the other hand, no matter who they put on him, from Jaylen Brown, Derek White, who was getting cooked by everybody in this particular game. Who else? Al Horford, Jrue Holiday. They all had no answer, and JB really didn't look shaky going up against these guys 1v1. There should have never been a separation as far as the gap was between Tatum and Jaylen Brown going 1v1 with other Knicks players like Deuce McBride, OG Anunoby, Josh Hart, Cat, and Mitch, versus Brunson going 1v1 with Al Horford, KP, Derek White, Jrue Holiday, and Jaylen Brown. The gap was much wider than what everybody anticipated. It's always interesting to look at the player archetype of Jayson Tatum because he's just an interesting character. In the last 3 games, games 2, 3, and 4, he only shot 6 free throws. And right here, as the Knicks switch multiple times, this exact moment right here, 1v1 with Brunson, OG serving as the low man. He should have took him to the rack a lot more. Conversions like this right here from the mid-range, I don't know, you just don't see the conversion as consistent from a top quote-unquote superstar, especially in his class, like a SGA or a Luka. Tatum did a couple of heat checks in this game. I swear he gets his momentum from long range.
A lot of players get their rhythm in the mid-range. You can't, and like I've talked to some coaches in the league who, have been in the league for, 20, 30, 40 years. And they always say, you always want to find a way to get your best players' shots. And a lot of times that's just spacing. Get them go one-on-one, get to their spot. But how can you say, I want to get them a shot, I want to get them a bucket, and then say, oh, but by the way,
you can't take that.
Don't do these ones.
Yeah, don't
do these ones.
And maybe the Celtics coaching staff has given him too much free range with that. And it really has made him one-dimensional at times, getting too far away from the playmaking and also getting to the cup and just drawing fouls. But I'm going to give him his credit because he was in his bag. Right here, look at the Celtics players in the perimeter. Look at their outside players compared to the Knicks. Like, who's he really giving the ball to if he can play make at this point? The Knicks at times, they have Mitchell Robinson, who's way more athletic than KP at this point in his career. You got Pritchard. You got Derek White. Who are these guys really taking off the dribble like that? The Knicks, on the other hand, they got OG. They got Josh Hart, constantly putting pressure at the rim. They got Karl Anthony Towns going downhill. He's a better big, more mobile, and he can also pop out. You got Mikal Bridges also, who can get to the mid-range. He has some speed on him. So the Knicks kind of have better perimeter players for Brunson to actually play make too. I'm going to give him his credit, though. He was making those tough shots. Now let's look at JB as he touches the paint. And nobody right here with the Celtics. Nobody wants to help. Got Cat out here. Al does not want to leave OG open. Okay, you got Bridges out there in the perimeter in the corner. And this is the difference between the Knicks and the Celtics. They could trust their star at this point, right in that position. Tatum again getting into his bag at the three-point line once again with Brunson hedging. And now Towns a little late on the recovery. Tatum really had to play the whole third quarter. But right here, we're going to get a good snapshot of this series. Take a look at from man to man. And it's almost as if the Knicks, in a way, they kind of have everybody outmatched or very close to it outside of the superstars. When you subtract Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and you just look at guys like OG versus Derek White, Cat versus any of the bigs that they have, he's overplaying them completely. Bridges' defense and offense is outplaying Jrue Holiday. Pritchard is outplaying most of the Knicks bench, but not by much when you add Mitchell Robinson's defensive impact as well as Deuce McBride. And then finally you factor in Jalen Brunson in 1v1 situations and also going down the stretch. He himself is almost outdoing Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown at the same time. And with the Celtics offense so stagnant and just relying on Tatum, they're going for tough shots. See, the funny thing about the NBA media, we all know they love the Celtics for the most part, as a lot of them are based out there in Boston, but they never seem to realize the walls that was kind of closing in on this team, regardless if Tatum was injured or not. Just looking at the shot chart from their hottest shooter at the moment, knowing that this team has barely any assists. I believe they ended the game with just 15 assists. This is where the walls really start closing in. And Brunson, on the other hand, he was hitting guys off with all kinds of shots. Off-ball threes, giving Derek White a Kobe fadeaway, attacking the Celtics bigs like Al Horford, who's been pretty much barbecue chicken all series long. It's been a problem, but not as bad as Tatum and Jaylen Brown not getting it going at the same time. Wow, this whole series, no one saw it coming that these two would not be on the same page going from game to game. And in game 4, Brown's decision making was crazy, especially with the fouls. The shot selection from Jaylen Brown looking real iffy early in the shot clock. Damn, this shit barely grazes the rim. This right here was completely reckless. Stepping into JB's landing area. Sheesh. Again, the reigning finals MVP. Just crazy shot selection right here. Very uncontrolled. Right here, not reacting fast enough to the Knicks' help defense. Check out Mikal. He's going to help out. That right there has been an issue for him as well as Jason Tatum all series, and we've seen it play out at the end of games 1 and 2. Here's another not so wise decision by Brown. You're only down 3 right here, but we're seeing the reasons why the Celtics had went out and got their insurance policies with Jrue Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, because at times they're high-priced stars. They really can't trust them going from series to series. And this is where it ties into the Knicks coming back, even being down double digits in the third quarter in games 1, 2, and 4. When things got tight in these second halves, their stars consistently dropped the ball. But I'm not going to give all the credit to them, because the Knicks defense, I mean, that series in Detroit is really what kind of revved up the engines for it, because right now they have been on one. And one of the best on-air Knick personalities, Monica McNutt, picked up on the fact that it's the defense and their attention to detail that has led to some of these comebacks. You guys check it out.
I kept looking at the box score, y'all. 1 turnover in the fourth quarter. And I think as much as we talk about Jalen Brunson, who is clutch, he had 8 points in the fourth quarter. He had 18 points in the third quarter. And Karl Anthony Towns was huge. We also should be having conversations about clutch rebound performance, clutch defensive performance, clutch, just clutch attention, right? In terms of this team being able to support him and his scoring, and Mikal Bridges, who had a big fourth quarter, but everybody else doing other things. And I immediately thought about what Tibbs said about rebounding runs after game 2, when you look at that team being able to go on an 11-0 run to take the lead into the fourth.
And she's 100% right. Check out the Knicks right here in the 11-0 run in game 2, just closing the gaps, avoiding KP, getting this alley hoop, or just any options opening up. Here's some more of that defense during that 11-0 run. Check out OG. He's helping out. And he's going to be quick to close out. Applying some of that pressure. Same run once again. Check out Deuce. He's letting OG know. He's going to help him out. Help out Brunson right here on this mismatch. And Deuce is right here in the passing gaps. Look where Deuce is at. He can get back to both shooters. This is a beautiful thing about Mitch too. He's tall enough to also be a deterrent in the passing lane to get to these two shooters. And finally, you got to have your team captain buy in also. Brunson right here serving as the low man as they run a pick and roll with KP and Tatum. See, Brunson's the last one left. The low man. KP instantly rolls. Brunson is the help. Once you got your captain taking charges like this, it's only up from here as motivation for your defense. So those were the third quarter plays to help the Knicks come back in game 2. Now jump into game 3. Check out Josh Hart on this peel switch. Brunson now, he picks up on Jaylen Brown. And Josh Hart is going to recover to avoid Jrue Holiday being the open shooter. And not only that, a key rebound right there from Karl Anthony Towns. You know, crazy thing throughout the regular season, the defensive rebounding along with getting stops was killing the Knicks. I mean, you could look at that Trae Young game where he rolled the dice. The end of that fourth quarter, how many offensive boards they got. The Knicks just couldn't get stops on top of that. And now to see everything kind of come together in the playoffs, this shit's amazing. There's some more of that key defensive rebounding. Check out OG. Man, he got KP by the neck. Sheesh. A man pulled down the OBJ rebound. Look at Brunson getting on some of the action on the boards. It sounds so simple, but again, during the regular season, there were games against the Cavs, the Hawks, and the Indiana Pacers where the Knicks could not secure defensive rebounds after desperately trying to get stops. But going back to some of the plays that led to that third quarter comeback in game 4, with Brunson constantly putting pressure at the rim, now we're going to get guys like Josh Hart and Karl Anthony Towns crashing the boards. It's going to put pressure on Derek White right here as he travels. So the Knicks in a way get a second chance opportunity. See, it's the little things in the playoffs. The little things that make all the difference. Check out the peel switching right here by this Knicks defense. Josh Hart is going to recover right to the corner. Mikal is going to recover to Brown. That's another thing that's sticking out as the Knicks climb up the ladder. That defensive cohesion. Guys are actually moving in sync. The communication looks A1. We're seeing a lot less mistakes than in the past. I remember Josh Hart used to get tight when the communication would fuck up. The look on his face said it all. And this is the play right here that really ignited this defensive comeback in the third. Mikal right here is going to help out. And for some reason, Jaylen Brown and Tatum at times, these guys revert back to the way they were before they won that championship, just not reading the help fast enough. So once again, in this very game, we're seeing the Celtics once again having the walls kind of cave in on them as their options begin to dwindle away. Jrue Holiday is cold from the field. They got both their bigs really a non-factor. Al Horford and Kristaps Porzingis is not only hitting wide open shots, they really don't have a defensive presence down low. Guys are not really getting deviated from going to the cup. And Karl Anthony Towns is making them pay. Any kind of mismatches on the offensive end where they want to throw Jason Tatum on them or they want to throw Jrue Holiday on Towns, it's not working out. Towns is eating them alive with those mismatches. And even Al Horford, he's a little bit too slow-footed. He's showing his age. And Kristaps Porzingis, I don't know what's going on, if he has an illness or something, but he just doesn't look right. So you add all those factors and including Jaylen Brown getting into foul trouble, not necessarily great with his decision making throughout the whole game. And this is where the full pressure is really weighted on Tatum's shoulders. Last but not least, I'm going to touch real lightly on just what exactly this play means for the Eastern Conference with Jason Tatum tearing his Achilles right here. the NBA today is a very different league than what it was just a few seasons ago. They got rid of a lot of the player movement, and this new CBA makes it a very thin line between competing for a championship and just completely blowing up a team and rebuilding. You see, with the Celtics, the way their roster is constructed, just them being over the luxury tax for 3 out of the last 4 seasons, they kind of get constricted on how to improve this team going forward. They can only really fish out of the minimum player market. That's the same conundrum that the Phoenix Suns have with having Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Kevin Durant on their roster. They're just limited on what players they can actually pick up. And every season, they continuously be in this second apron luxury tax, as some of you guys can see from the chart. Once you hit over that $190 million threshold, if you stay within that for 3 out of 4 seasons, you begin to get, I believe it's 7 years out, they take your first round draft pick. They automatically basically put it to the back, which is crazy. They've really made this shit real complicated. And at the same time, you're limited on what kind of trades you can make. You can't do no 2-for-1s. You can't do no trades where the salaries are off by a few $100,000. It gets real complicated. So you really don't want to be in that sphere of just continuously being in that second apron. And they recently re-signed Derek White, Drew Holiday, and things are looking quite limited for them. They're eventually going to lose Al Horford right here. He's pretty much aged out. And KP, who knows what they're going to do with him, because he is looking like an old 30-year-old. I mean, he's only in his early 30s and his body it's not really holding up. But them not having Tatum for next season and just having so much salary committed to him, it's really going to put him in an interesting spot, especially with a brand new ownership that just bought the team. And now he has to pay luxury tax and be strangled on how to improve his team. He's going to have very limited options on doing that. And that's something that a lot of owners, especially what we've seen from the Luka trade, a lot of these new owners, they don't really know how they're going to maneuver when they give somebody a super max deal. Because any mistakes they make, putting a co-star next to a star player, they could end up paying a high luxury tax every season, which could be over $150 million. I mean, this is what happened to the Phoenix Suns owner. He's paying $150 in luxury tax every season, but his team keeps getting shittier and shittier as they go on because he's limited on what free agents he could pick up, what trades he could make. Things get real complicated, and that's why I say it's a very thin line between teams competing for a championship and also just blowing everything up and rebuilding. Now, good thing for the Knicks, they got an advantage. Jalen Brunson took a pay cut, and they're not really going to dip into that second apron continuously. But in the offseason, how that contract works out with Mikal Bridges is going to be very interesting. But for the most part, we're going to save that down the road into the future. But the Eastern Conference is going to shift. It is 100% going to shift. I can't say the Celtics are going to come down a notch, but they're not really going to be the top dogs going forward unless this new ownership is willing to pay luxury tax for a team that's possibly not really going to be as competitive to put pieces around Jaylen Brown and also Tatum. Their salaries are just way, way too high. But we'll see how it plays out, man. That's why Brunson, man, he got to get a statue in New York, because him taking a pay cut, putting everything on his shoulders and just carrying the team, especially in crunch time moments, he's just doing it all, man. And my man not even going to get a jersey retirement. He's just going to get a statue, man, next to the Statue of Liberty. Fuck it. He might end up earning that. But we'll see how it plays out. Knicks have taken a commanding lead, and things are looking up. This defense, it's really led by the defense. The defense does not get enough credit after coming off that Detroit Pistons series where they really got their wake-up call. And ever since then, they've been on their P's and Q's. But the playoffs are a long series. We're going to go game by game, and we'll see how it turns out. Until next time, you fellas, stay safe. Peace.